Hello, Sydney. We're excited to get this kicked off today, this evening. First, just thank you all for coming and spending the evening with us here. We really appreciate it. We have a great event planned for you, and great speakers too. We're super excited about that. And welcome to the Centennial Homestead. So we picked this location. I mean, look at this beautiful lawn, this green pocket in the middle of bustling Sydney for a very specific reason. So ŌURA was founded in Oulu. Oulu is a fishing village up near the Arctic Circle, about an hour and a half flight from Helsinki. It's surrounded by forests and lakes. And I think this product could only be born in Finland and only in Oulu. It's a place that's very focused on balance. This whole idea of going out and enjoying nature and being active, like the people of Australia and New Zealand, but also focused on rest and recovery. This idea of focusing on sleep. ŌURA was an early vanguard in that area. The company was founded in 2013 in Oulu and really pioneered the idea of a wellness device that sits on your finger. We are by far and away the iconic brand leader in the space, but we're actually also a top wearable. If you look at other wearables, ŌURA is in the top 1, 2, or 3 around the world. We've sold 5.5 million rings since the company's founding. 2.5 of those have been over the course of the last 8 to 9 months. So the company has really, while it was slow in the beginning, it's really started to ramp. Famous Australians like Chris Hemsworth, Miranda Kerr also love the product. So we're already beloved by many Australians. Why has ŌURA been so successful? So I'm going to talk about 3 areas very specifically at a high level. Number 1, we believe wearables that you actually wear 23.5 hours a day are really critical. It weighs as much as a piece of paper. It's made from titanium. The battery itself lasts for an entire week. Most wearables you have to charge at night, and ŌURA you can wear throughout the night. So we're able to actually capture all the sleep data, and you don't even know you have it on. It's that simple and easy to wear. You'll hear that frequently from users. Number 2, it's screenless. So it doesn't have a screen on it. That screen draws down battery, but it does something else really important. Anybody who's got a wearable, it's always pining for your attention. Time to get up, you're not moving, you've been sitting for a while. It's constantly wanting you to engage with it, or it does not do that. The technology very much recedes into the background. Third, and most importantly, I think, is accuracy. So if any of you have been to an EMT or a doctor's office, the first thing they do if they want to check your vitals is they look at your finger and they check your finger because that signal is 100 times more accurate than your wrist. They don't put your hand on your wrist, they're looking for your pulse, your heart rate, your circulatory system, it's all coming off the finger. Our wrists are actually very noisy. There's cartilage, bones, hair, and other things, and the signal's not as accurate. So the finger is incredibly accurate. A mention on our mission. So we are very focused, and we have been for over a decade, of small steps, of really making health a daily practice. This idea that it's not always about going in hard, it's little steps that can improve your health. And the line that we use to talk about what our product does is we give everybody a voice. We give everybody a voice. What does that mean? ŌURA is essentially a translation device for your body. There's all these complex signals, respiratory, heart, temperature, sleep data, and we translate it into actionable data that you can use to improve your health. That's what we do at its core. We started in sleep. We built an entire suite of women's health services on our product. We have illness detection, stress, resilience, metabolic, cardiovascular insights. It's really a fully holistic product. But tonight we're going to actually go back to the foundation. We're going to talk about sleep. We're going to actually, this whole experience, and my colleague George a little later on is going to talk to you about what you're experiencing today, is going to be all focused on sleep. We have a study that we're launching tomorrow, and 2 of my colleagues are going to talk about this study. We've looked at data, sleep data, across New Zealanders and Australians. and to see how you stack up versus all the data sets around the world. What differences do we see here culturally in Australia and New Zealand? The way stress impacts your life, your sleep, your overall sleep, but also the quality of your sleep. How does it look? What are the differences there and the way you live your life in this part of the world? So we're gonna talk about that and give you some insights. I know that you haven't read this yet or seen it yet, but we've seen the data. We're gonna share with you some really interesting insights. So I'm gonna introduce two of my colleagues up here. We're gonna do a little Q&A chat. The first is Dorothy Kilroy. I've worked with Dor now for 3+ years. Dor is our Chief Commercial Officer, and she's incredibly passionate about women's health products. She's been spearheading these initiatives and the build out of our women's health services and suite of products over the last 3 years. A good example, she also runs all of our strategic partnerships, so Natural Cycles, non-hormonal birth control product where we feed temperature and other data into the Natural Cycles app. She's been spearheading that effort. So if I could welcome you up, Dor Kilroy. Also, Dr. Rebecca Robbins. She is one of the leading authorities on sleep. She works at Brigham and Women's Hospital as a sleep scientist. She also works at the Harvard Medical School. She's one of the most prolific and profound experts on sleep. The thing about Rebecca that I want to tell you is she takes the complex and makes it very simple and actionable for us, which is one of her superpowers. So welcome you both, and I'll ask some questions if I want. All right. Thank you both. Excited to talk to you. So maybe I'll start with Dor. Dor, this study that we're launching tomorrow. I mean, just at a high level, insights related to sleep. What did you see in the data as you were sort of reflecting on and looking at it?
Yeah, I mean, Australia is one of my favorite places in the world, and I'm reminded with a beautiful crowd like this, why. Australians, if there was a sleep Olympics, you guys win. Truly, when we stack up against the rest of the world, it is incredible how much Australians and New Zealanders sleep. Interestingly, New Zealanders slightly above Australians, but when you actually look at the sleep quality, the amount of deep sleep, and this really matters, quality of sleep and not just duration of sleep, Australians are hands down the winners. So it is not surprising that you produce such incredible Olympic athletes. It's not surprising that you guys all look so beautiful tonight. But I think what is really interesting is we sort of have built a culture around, I'll sleep when I die, right? And this sort of more is better, right? We need to work more, we need to work out more, we need to, we're never enough. And sort of sleep can feel indulgent. And it's really interesting when you start to see the data about just how Australians don't take that lightly. And they have always maybe understood the health benefits of sleep. So I think ŌURA is going to not just continue to grow here, but actually really help people understand what is good quality sleep.
That's a good story. Rebecca, as a scientist, you spend all your time thinking about this, doing research all over the world, actually. What do you see in the data? I mean, it's not just about, to Dor's point, it's not about the quantity of sleep. There's actually a deeper level of nuance in the data. What are you seeing when you look at the data?
I'm applauding because you are the world leader. I mean, the report is so exciting because we were able to segment by country the leaders in terms of sleep duration, and you as a nation are actually getting the highest sleep duration across the globe. And that's really remarkable because you're closer than any other nation to the window of what we recommend, which is 7 to 9 hours. And the vast majority, or many of us, fall short of that, and from night to night that can vary. If you're kind of, experiencing stress for personal reasons, for professional reasons, sleep is one of the first things that can go by the wayside. But that was one of the first things that was exciting. But I will say, as a nation, you were sleeping about 7 hours and 20 minutes.
That's right. Yes.
Which is still the recommended range of sleep is between 7 and 9 hours. So you're doing well. But the other interesting thing is another term that we talk about in sleep medicine that's kind of growing in awareness in the general population, and the term is chronotype. Has anyone heard the term chronotype before? So chronotype refers to your personal, in large part, genetic preference for being a morning person or an evening person. And what was so interesting is there is an enormous kind of orientation towards morningness in Australia, and very few evening people. The best way to tell where you are on that spectrum is asking yourself where you do your best work, being most creative, you're most productive. And if you say, first thing in the morning, you're morning time. And if you say, I come alive at night, you're evening time. But that was another really interesting and stark observation. And that what's so exciting to me as a scientist, partnering with ŌURA for more than 10 years, helping you with your algorithms, validate your devices in my laboratory at Harvard Medical School, is this device can prompt the behavioral reflection that if you got 6 hours and you wake up and you feel terrible, or you get a notification, I think your chronotype might be X, Y, or Z. Awareness is everything. Because then, especially when it relates to us and our personal routines, we can be like, wow, and make 1 or 2 small changes, and maybe your sleep's going to be better today, and your day's going to be a little bit brighter tomorrow.
That's awesome. Thank you. Actually, I have one more for you, Rebecca. Are there any science, hacks, little hacks to increase your REM, your deep sleep? You know how important that is. It's like mission critical. Do you have any just for Australians or New Zealanders that they can?
We do. It's a great question, and that was one of the things that we also saw in their report, that Australians have a little bit more deep sleep than New Zealanders, which is interesting. Now, sleep over the course of the night, it's a myth that your head hits the pillow and you fall asleep, and you magically enter this state of sleep, and then you wake up and you feel restored. But instead of this monolithic process, sleep is actually very varied. It's very rhythmic in nature. You ebb and flow in and out of all of these very different, very beautiful stages that are actually, again, very, very different. In rapid eye movement sleep, we see a lot of the benefits cognitively of our sleep. If I monitor your brain during rapid eye movement sleep, it looks a lot like, hopefully, what you're doing right now, which is learning or getting new information, gaining insights. And in deep sleep, we enter muscular regeneration. There are also cognitive benefits to deep sleep, but deep sleep is where we get a lot of the benefits from our immune system, from our physical health, our restoration, our ability to wake up and really maintain homeostasis in a number of different areas of our health. During deep sleep, we enter the closest thing that we get as humans to hibernation, and that is vitally important. Dipping in blood pressure, dipping in body temperature, because that allows us to rest and repair and wake up and maintain normal levels of those elements. Some tips to improve deep sleep. The best ways to do that are actually through behavioral strategies. So exercise. People who get exercise get more sleep than deep sleep than do non-exercisers. People who manage their stress over the course of the day, we're going to get into that, and that's one of the challenging things, and ŌURA really can keep you honest because it's really robust in its ability to measure stress. Keeping stress at bay with relaxation strategies, and over the course of the day, not always at night. I think sometimes we think, we just have to relax at night, but really there's this beautiful rhythm to our daily lives that we do need to lean into, and there's not a perfect, slow, straight line to model human performance over the course of the day. It's really rhythmic. Maybe by your afternoon, for instance, is a great time to take a nap because we all have a little bit of a dip in alertness. So it's managing stress over the course of the day, getting the time, making time for exercise, are 2 of the best ways to improve your deep sleep.
Great tips. Actually, I'm going to tee up to ŌURA on the same. So Australians in the study showed that the country is actually very high stress and low relaxation. Like, do you have any tips or tricks that you use?
So fascinating. So yes, on the one end, Australians sleep better than most other nations, but super high stress. And so ŌURA measures your daytime stress in real time, so you can see the graph in real time. Now, stress in my mind always needs a rebrand. Not all stress is bad, right? Stress can be sort of your exercise routine and sort of the autophagy your body is undergoing. That's all great stress. We also have stress from caffeine. We have stress from social interactions. For some people, this is a really stressful moment. For others, actually, they don't find it stressful. So the key is actually understanding what causes stress to your body, and then where do you restore best? And it is so individual. So I'll give you an example, Doug. I'm someone, I love being social, and my husband hates it. He's the total opposite end of the spectrum. And when I go to events, I actually can see my stress lower. I enjoy it, I enjoy connecting with people, I feel good, I like being social. and his goes off the charts. So I think it's so interesting when you see what are the triggers. And then one of the hardest things for me is to get my body back into that restorative state. So we don't just measure stress, we see when your body goes back into this restorative state. I'll give you another example of what I have used is I have switched from having as much caffeine as I was having to using a lot more matcha tea. And I can see my stress graph drop into this restorative state. And I think we all have to find what are those things, whether that's a walk in nature, whether that's reading a book and not being on another screen, whether that's talking to a friend, having a cup of tea, whatever it is, you have to find how your body responds to that.
Amazing. Great tips. Thank you, Dora. We have a ton of great drinks here tonight that everybody can indulge in. And when you think about alcohol, one of the things I personally learned a lot about myself in terms of alcohol, there was things I learned or helped me manage that in the right way. We know it impacts your body, right? It can have a very disruptive on your sleep and your all stages of sleep. How do you manage that? Do you have any other tips or tricks for people?
Again, alcohol is another very individual reaction. And unfortunately, the bad news is for most of us, it really does impact us. But the type of drink, the time of day, how much food you had or have not had, hydration, all those things impact it. And so when you start to see that data, you start to change your behaviors. I'll give you some examples of what we see with ŌURA members. It is one of the biggest habit changes that we see with ŌURA members when they start to wear their ring. In the first few weeks, they'll say, oh my goodness, I had no idea what alcohol was doing to my body. And we've all read the general reports, right? We've seen the data. But then when you see your own data, it's a totally different reaction. And so I think for me personally, and we should hear more on the science on it too, but for me personally, some of the tricks and tips that I've had is the time of day I drink. And so I had just changed that. There was just a certain time that we sort of all aligned on caffeine and not having that after a certain point in the day. I think we sort of need the same for our own biology for alcohol, and making sure that we sort of, support that.
That's great.
Just on the sleep front, I can certainly attest to some of the changes. We give someone a dose of alcohol or more than one, depending on your body mass. Your sleep generally is impacted, but it depends if you've had a meal, depending on your body mass. Learning where your sweet spot is, and sometimes people are like, I can't give up my glass of wine. And one of the things that I love about ŌURA, and which makes us aligned, because I think it would be easy for me to say, no alcohol, no caffeine, but I think also sometimes these things are shared over meals with friends and loved ones. And I think giving yourself a little bit of grace to understand that maybe my sleep score is going to go down on a Friday night if I want to have 2 or 3 drinks. But there might be other benefits at play. But I'm really aligned with you, Dora, on timing. I'm a big fan of day drinking for that reason. Because it's very far temporally away from sleep. So, but I think everything in moderation. 1 glass probably isn't going to be too harmful, but we really see the impacts in more than 2 cups, glasses of wine, where the structure of your sleep will totally change, and you'll sleep, but it's not going to be restorative sleep. So if you've ever had a night out and you're like, I slept for 8, 9, 10 hours, what's the deal? Why am I so tired? And it's because we spend much more time in light sleep, much less time in deep sleep, and instead of many cycles and now the different stages of sleep at night, you're going to have far fewer. So waking up and feeling groggy and undisturbed.
Sleep is, Rebecca, I want to ask you this. Sleep is your life work. This is what you do every day, and your mission in life is to focus on sleep and improving it for people and doing studies. What emerging science are you the most excited about? Are you super pumped about?
Well, I think the thing I'm the most excited about is sleep is it's kind of a new field. A lot of our big discoveries happened in the past 20 20, 30 years, which is not the case for many other areas of medicine. Our department chair at Harvard Medical School developed our understanding of blue light exposure and how that matters for our circadian rhythms. And that was not that long ago. And so sleep is a new field and makes it a really exciting place to be. I think what I'm most excited about, though, is the cognitive aging research in sleep. And our group at Harvard and others have done some of this work to demonstrate that your sleep tonight, tomorrow, and into the future matters for your brain health tonight, tomorrow, and into the future. And what's so interesting is that over the course of our night, as we enter our sleep, we virtually go into repair mode. Every single cell of the body enters this period of rest and relaxation, and it's vitally important in order for us, every single cell of the body, to then respond and kind of have the opposite response of energetic or energy firing, et cetera. But what's so interesting during sleep is there's a 60% increase in flow of this really important fluid called cerebral spinal fluid, and it rinses through the brain, and it acts like Drano, if you've ever used this on a sink. And it simply kind of drags some of the toxic particles that can accumulate in our brains, and if those are allowed to accumulate, they are associated with Alzheimer's disease and dementia. So some of this work is really finding insight on just how important sleep is in the longer term, which is sometimes so hard to discount when you have another episode of Netflix or another post to curate or social media to scroll, or there's so many things that draw on our time. But I think that this research really kind of pulls all of those things to the fore once you kind of learn about this really fascinating process that happens during sleep. And flips totally this notion on its head, sleep undead. I'll stay up later to do X, Y, or Z, and sometimes that's valid and appropriate, but it is such an incredibly important part of the longevity equation. And in my career, I've seen, when I started out, sleep was not an exciting, sexy place to be. People are studying sleep. But I think there's been this really amazing, and I think that ŌURA has been part of that collective awakening to just how important it is. And I'm so glad that we're here and we're finally waking up to this, pun intended, because it is just so important.
Thank you, Rebecca. Dora, before we came downstairs, we were talking about why now in Australia? Why are we here? What impact can ŌURA have in this market and the community of Australian and New Zealanders?
I think that most people think of wearables as a fitness device. I'm just going to track how I work out, right? And I'm sure many of us here maybe even started our first wearable doing that. And it turns out for about the other 23 hours and maybe 30 minutes, if you're me, of the day, it really actually matters what you do in between. And your fitness really matters, and we measure that at ŌURA. We detect your activity, we look at your VO2 max, we look at the zones, we capture all of that. But actually it really matters what you're doing for the rest of the day. What you eat, where you are in your cycle, how that's changing, what your blood pressure is. When you think about your sleep, your rest, your recovery, there's just so many parts to our health. Now, I don't know about all of you, but I feel like managing my health is like a full-time job. It's exhausting at times, figuring out, should I do this, should I do that, should I eat this, should I eat that? Do I need that supplement that somebody just marketed to me or not? I don't know. It's exhausting. And I think one of the most beautiful things you can do is understand your own biology. And when you do that and you see your own data, you can see what works for you. Not for everybody else, but for you. I am really excited that we are building our momentum in Australia. This is a market to me that is on the forefront, one of the leaders in the world of health. And I cannot wait to see the data grow, the data sets that we're going to grow here that will help us build better products and serve this market.
Last questions, and then I'm going to invite another colleague up here to talk to you about the rest of the evening and what we've got planned for you, which will be fun. You have just one practical tip. If you just will pick one for this room of people to help them with your sleep, what is is the one thing you would tell them to do?
Oh gosh, this is going to be so not fun, but it's the one that works for me, is get off your devices. And it's so hard because I am somebody who loves a little doom scroll late at night, just like, none of us are perfect, but get off your devices early. It's probably the cheapest, easiest hack for your health. And just try it and see what your data shows you.
I love that. I just add, I think and I'm writing a book on this topic, the bedtime process. I think kids in our society do this really well, and then we as adults are like, oh, what time is it? You know, I have one more. I could do one more episode. I could, send one more email. But I think if we took a page out of that playbook that we give our children in our society, which is a bedtime, and we fill the time before when our child can be falling asleep with relaxing things. And I think we can forget that as adults. And if it's one or two things, and you kind of are purposeful about that. If it's reading a couple pages in a book, if it's practicing a relaxation exercise, there's a wealth of information on the ŌURA app, mindfulness exercises, breathing routines. I think we need them now more than ever in our wild and crazy world that we live in. The skill set of like honing your rest response, because it's not automatic. We have a stress response, we know that, but not a rest response. And it is something that does take a little bit of work. But once you get that balance right, then you can start to really look forward to nighttime.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Robbins, and thank you, George. So next up, I'd like to introduce George Abbott. He runs our retail business across APAC and EMEA. George, over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our ŌURA Sleep Studio. What do you think? Good? Looks good? Yeah. So I'm going to take you through what this is going to look like for each of you. Hopefully you find it a lot of fun and you've seen some insights that Dawn and Rebecca have taken you through. So think of this, and Rebecca just mentioned it, about a really key pattern towards your evening. Think of this as like a laboratory for your end of evening pattern. So what you've got, so first of all, you've got the opportunity to create your own sleep mist. So think of this as a way for your body to tie a scent to your sleep routine. So your body can associate that time. Blend your own sleepy tea. This is my favorite, by the way. So how you can actually connect or disconnect a little bit from maybe caffeine during your day and maybe moving that into the earlier part of your day and the impact that caffeine could have later in your evening routine. How about grabbing a blind date with a book? To Dawn's point earlier, put the screens down, step away from the blue screens and swap it for a page of a book. Or you have a sound bath. And there's a little bit of logistics on this, but the sound bath is incredible. It's so relaxing. We won't judge you if you fall asleep. Some of you will. We will draw a line on snoring. That will we'll definitely draw a line there. But logistics of that, you will all see on your wristbands, everybody has a time. So please pay attention to the time on your wristbands. On top of that, if you have any questions for anybody at ŌURA or any of the ŌURA team, we have these beautiful gold wristbands. So feel free to grab us, say hi, ask any questions, we're happy to take them. But as part of the launch of ŌURA in Australia, we did really want to pay really close attention and respect to Australian heritage, whether that be the flowers that you see around the room, whether that be the herbs that you see and you'll have in your tea, or the botanicals that you're going to have in your sleep mist. We did really want to respect Australian heritage. And that includes inviting a very special guest, Auntie Maxine Ryan, who is going to join us now and give us an acknowledgement of country.
Well, Nadabi everybody, Nadabi, which means welcome, welcome, or hello, hello in Dharawal language. My name is Auntie Maxine Ryan and I'm from the Aboriginal community of Botany Bay. And I belong to the Dharawal nation. But I am going to acknowledge the Bidjigal Gadjigal clan, the land we're meeting on, and acknowledge my elders, past, present, those emerging. And then the Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people that are joining us here. I welcome you all here. And every time I do a welcome, I do acknowledge my elders because how hard they fought. We are the oldest culture in the world. We're over 60,000 years. And my elders fought very hard to where we are today for our education, employment, and freedom too. As I did grow up on a mission, so we didn't have a voice. My parents never had a voice. And but my dad did apply for a job at St Michael's Golf Club. He worked there all his life and he retired there. But every time he went to work, he still had to sign on and off the mission. And he had to wear his tag because back then, if Aboriginal people or Torres Strait Islander people didn't have that paperwork on the tag, that's part of our stories of our stolen generation. Yet they would have took him. Who cares that he had a wife and 10 children at home? But my dad, no, he worked all his life, and I might have grew up on a mission, but I grew up rich because I had a loving mum and dad who gave us the time and love, which cost nothing. And that's what I'm passionate about, going into schools and teaching the young generation. Not just about, my culture and about my stories, but about the land and how to care for our beautiful land. Because she's our mother, she's the one who makes, she feeds our animals, feeds our plants, makes our medicine, and, I teach them how to care for the beautiful land. And not just the land, the water too, because the water is very important to me. As I said, I come from Botany Bay, and the borees are coming now, that's the whales, that's my total. So I care a lot about the water. And I'm passionate about when the children, they go to school and then they have their projects on plastic, as I didn't grow up with plastic. And I love going there and doing their projects with them, because we need to get rid of plastic, because that's what's killing our environment. It's killing our land and our water too. Because as I say, the borees, that's my totem, and I really care for it. And just a week ago, there was a boree come along and had a baby. We lost Auntie, but to us that's very spiritual, because we lose one, but we gain one. And the children, I always thank them on all the hard work that they do, all the hard learning they do, and their teachers too, for all the hard work that they do. Because the journeys they'll take on this land, Aboriginal land always was, always will be, is big journeys. We're still taking our journeys. And while we are here, I always thank everybody for being that role model for our young generation, because we're taking our journeys and they're following behind us. They won't forget us, they won't forget that smile, that face, the nurture we give them. So I do thank you on all the hard work that you do. And just sitting there listening to the doctors there, it was great to hear, because it is good, and it is good for our young generation. Because our food and our water is changing every day. So that's really good for our young generation. So I do thank you for all the hard work that you do and the research that you do. And, and as I say to the children, they're our future, they're our leaders. They will be running my country one day. And I say to them, when you do take your journeys, please take that word respect with you, because Australia is a multicultural country. And, we're getting stronger and stronger every day. But we can keep on living together for thousands and thousands of more years, together as one. It doesn't matter what culture you are. What just happened at Bondi was very sad. That young girl, she lives in La Perouse. Her family's there. She went to La Perouse Public School. We really felt for her. We gave her and her community, all the love that we can give. Because as we always say, Australia is a multicultural country. And our young generation, that's what they're going to do in their journeys. They are going to sit next to somebody with a different culture. They are going to work with someone with a different culture. And that's why I teach them that word respect to take with them. And while they're taking the journey, keep on looking after my mother. Because as I say, the land, she's the one that feeds us. Doesn't matter what culture you are. If you don't look after mother, who's going to look after you? And, the children, they're so lovely. I love being with them every day. I learn just like they're learning. And the stories they come up with, they're so funny. You know, and as I go along each day, I think of one of those stories, one of them children might say, and I start laughing to myself, because I always say their stories are just important as my stories. Their culture is just important as my culture. And they always tell me about their stories and their culture and how they live off the land and how they grow things at home. And I love hearing all them stories. And when they do go home, they keep that up and they keep their culture going. And I always say to them, keep your culture close, because I keep mine. And carry that word respect. And as I say, I don't say goodbye in my language. I say nandawabi, which means if I don't see you around, I will see you in the dream time. Because that's what I tell the children. I don't say goodbye, I will catch up with them later. And I will, when I go, I will see my siblings, my elders, my parents and everybody else that I lost. I will see them in the dream time. But you keep up the good work that you're doing. And 2026 has started. We're going to have a great year. Let's hope. And Donald Trump don't step in. But, it's beautiful. And look at this lovely weather. And my people survived. Way from, the city, way down to the south coast. That's all mine. And all my mob survived right along there. And there's so many stories and carvings and how they survived. But today we just can't advertise it because there's too many people that do the wrong thing. But we still nurture it, we still look after that land, and we still care. So, nandawabi, if I don't see you around, I will see you in the dream time, and don't forget, look after country, because country will keep on looking after you. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much for spending the time with us. We're so happy to have you here and be part of the official ŌURA launch in Australia. I hope you enjoyed the evening. Come find us and say hi, but thank you all for coming.